I have to say, as I begin this review, that nearly everything was working against it from the outset for me. I was not looking forward to it. I think some of the lead up and marketing was poor, especially with some of the comments by one of the actresses. And on the note of the two main lead actresses, I particularly don't like them as individuals. I think Ariana Grande is a homewrecker, and the lady who played the Green Witch in this showed to be pretty self-centered, especially with the controversy she kicked up around the poster trying to say it was erasing her from the thing, when that seemed like she was going out of her way to be a victim. Now, with having said that, and having seen Wicked, with everything working against it, I have to say the film, judging it on its own merits, separating from any other issues that I think people legitimately might have with it, because I think it's a kind of legitimate thing if people don't want to watch this because of, what the actress has done and kind of attacking fans and things like that. But if you were to separate it from all those things, Wicked, the film, wasn't bad. And I'm shocked to say it.
And I get to jump in now.
Yes.
I've invaded today.
Because I am joined by my lovely wife, the lady. On a side note, there's been idiots online trying to spread the rumour that we're divorced.
Because they've ever met me in person.
I know.
No,
right?
I just don't show up very often. I don't often have a lot to say about the movies that you guys want to hear about. But Wicked, for me, I've seen the stage show. I've tried reading the book that the stage show is based on, which I will get to later. And so this one, I have more to say.
Yes, and look, the lady has joined us on, Night's Watch videos before, so if you're new to her presence, no, she jumps in when she has something to say, and I think it's particularly appropriate because she's also the target audience.
Very much so.
Yes, and I think the last time you actually were on Night's Watch was in our Barbie review.
I believe so.
Yes. All right, so now going into Wicked. So when I say wasn't bad, did I enjoy it? For me, at times, at other times, I found I was kind of bored. I'm not like, oh, music draws me in and I'm loving it because of the music. But there are some people like that.
You, however, like very limited movies that have music in it.
Yeah.
You might be limited to what Les Mis, because that's also a stage show, and maybe The Greatest Showman at times.
Some of the music is good in The Greatest Showman.
But other than that, you're not particularly big on having music in a movie.
Some of the Disney ones, actually, I can enjoy. And look, I got to say, the music in Frozen was particularly good. Like if the music blows you away and really sucks you in, I can enjoy it because of the music. I mean, there was a couple of songs I could say I did enjoy the tune, melody and stuff like that. I think the popular one was kind of fun. But, I mean, other than that, didn't do much for me, but I'm a guy. So I'm not saying guys can like this, but it's not the stereotypical guy film or the,
Shad's not a music guy.
There was a distinct lack of swords, okay? I need a sword. So what were your feelings on it, my dear?
In general, I quite enjoyed it. Going into it, I actually did not realise that it was a part one.
Aha, yes.
And so because when you go see the stage show, you get to see the whole thing with an intermission in between. So it never occurred to me that they would break it up because the stage show is just under 3 hours. Though I suppose if I thought about it and thought, oh, they'll add more special effects, they'll add a little bit more into the dance routines because they can show more, maybe it would have made sense. But it never even clicked until the end of the movie. Like, it's the start of the movie says part one, but because you go into a stage show and there's an intermission, I just assumed that we would watch part one and part two together. I was wrong.
It was. Did that ruin it for you? Do you feel? Because my feelings with part ones and part twos is that it needs to be done right. I think it was done well in Dune part one because there was kind of a resolution for it, right? But in contrast to this, Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, whatever, the one that, that was such a horrible way to, cut it off.
That one took forever to go through and you still didn't feel like you'd gotten resolved anything.
So do you reckon Wicked ended off on enough of a beat or moment that it felt like, okay, it's achieved something to give you some satisfaction?
I think so, because it's kind of gets to a point where you can start to see things turn the way you expect them to get to The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and it ended on a great musical number, which I feel is kind of...
Yeah.
No, it was a good musical number.
Yeah.
The effects were great. It was a good place to end it. I just didn't expect it, even though we'd been sitting there for about 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it ends on a big moment, but also ends with a lot of questions, especially with, for me, I was left thinking, some significant stuff needs to happen for answers or the resolution of The Wizard of Oz, the original film, for that to make sense. I have not seen the stage production, so I don't actually know any of those things.
And try not to spoil, guys. I haven't let him know the spoilers yet.
I'm not actually
come
too
on.
fussed, because I don't care too much about it, but I can acknowledge, look, it's actually honestly, a very well-made film. It's it's actually, for its target audience, I think they're going to like it quite a lot. I was worried a bit about, certain ideological injection into it, like they did with the Barbie film, but I didn't notice really any of that. In fact, you're saying that this is a pretty faithful adaptation from the stage production.
Right. Pretty much all the scenes are the same. They, of course, add the special effects and a bit of fun things like that. But all the songs are from the stage production. I think they add 2 new ones in part 2 when that comes out next year.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty much it's the same one.
And okay, so that's kind of surprising. It seems like they didn't want to inject any stuff into it. I was worried that they were going to try and make a really too on the nose, ham-fisted race analogy between her green skin and then real world race and bigotry and stuff like that. And though people judge her for her green skin, it actually doesn't last that long. It doesn't become a really major kind of focal point. I'm trying to decide if it was they had to get over the bigotry of her skin color, which I didn't really sense. It was just the fact that she was different and weird, and that's why she was more rejected.
Yeah, nobody had ever seen somebody with green skin before. So for all of them, it was a bit of a shock and a little bit scary in a world where there's forms of magic. They're not sure if this is something that's going to affect them. But for the most part, people end up disliking her or liking her on her own merits.
Yeah, and the core of this film, lives and dies on these 2 characters, Glinda and what's her actual name? The witch? Elphaba.
Elphaba. There we go.
I knew it started with an A, and I was like, something. Okay. Their relationship and progression is the core of this film, the arc of part 1, and that was actually one of the parts that I could enjoy. It felt a little flat once they achieved, overcoming some of their differences. Their clashing, their dislike for each other, I felt was actually kind of entertaining to begin with, and how they progressed past that was actually achieved through what I, took as an authentic, heartfelt kind of moment, or even an inadvertent act of kindness, but one interprets as a genuine act of kindness and reciprocates in kind. And it didn't take much, but that those genuine acts of kindness caused them to give each other a chance and a friendship to blossom. And that was done well. And it actually had good, strong emotional beats in it as a result. And so because they did that, that is the underpinning kind of motivation and relationship of the film. Because they made that work, the film worked. What was your thoughts on that?
For once, I was actually really glad that the stage production and the movie do not coincide with the book.
Okay.
They've got the names of the people right. They've got pretty much the characters, but the book I don't actually like. I've tried reading it twice and I've not finished it either time. The characters weren't enjoyable. They weren't nice. There was a lot of things added that would basically make sure it would never ended up on a children's shelf.
Oh, really?
A lot, and that's was just got a bit ridiculous. So to have a sweet, engaging show and movie, for me, it was done a lot better. So this is the one time wouldn't say that the book was better. The book was a lot worse, and I quite enjoyed this. I'm the target audience for the stage show and the movie.
So I have to say something that I was not expecting, and I got to give props. Okay, I was And it's, look, I've already said I'm not a fan of her as a person. She's an actual home wrecker, okay? And so I don't think she's that nice of a person. But Ariana Grande almost stole the show. I was not expecting her to be that good of an actress. Like when you see certain singers try and transition into acting, really bad. And it could be that a lot of it is meant to be overacted, but the fact that she was able to do it and make it seem like she's vain, ditzy, she thinks she's a good person, and she has a good side to her, but because she's so self-absorbed, right? This is actually a really difficult character to make likable, because you can make a self-absorbed, narcissistic, vain, character hateable very easily. Those are the character traits. But to have a character that has those traits and make them be actually dare I say, charming and likable to watch is very difficult to pull off. And it requires decent acting, but also a good script to try and balance it out. And I was a bit shocked that she managed it. Was she like that in the stage production, Glinda?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. She's portrayed her very well.
So it was a good adaptation then. And then the fact that she was able to give some good performances, I'm shocked, honestly. And then you have the singing, and that's her strong point. Her singing is basically flawless. Props to both of them, honestly. Both of their, vocals are pretty darn impressive. My dear, what were your thoughts on?
Well, that also is one of the benefits of it being a movie, is that they can get the sound to work beautifully, because some of these songs have some really high notes.
Yeah.
And that was actually a struggle for when we watched the stage production, was the sound crew sometimes had a trouble with those high notes, and it sounded a little bit screechy, and the sound system struggled with it.
Especially the popular song, because it has such a distinct and important delivery and tone of the word popular, and actually goes through like a certain tone delivery with a high vocal pitch on it. That's important to get right, but she nailed it. She's a famous singer for a reason, I guess. And so those are all some pretty good points of praise, and I gotta give props to the actress here as well. I was not inclined to like her, and I still have issues with her, I guess, as an individual, with the way she handled the lead up, but her performance was basically flawless, and she deserves to be given credit for it, honestly. So same with your thoughts?
Yes, I think she portrayed her quite well, and developed her character in a way that she looked outside of herself as well, because she was also quite focused on the fact that, yes, she is green, that everybody sees that first.
Yeah. The prince, I didn't like him to begin with, but then they actually showed he has some depth and layers to him that is like, okay, he's not a complete idiot. And so this is one of those moments where I think the people making this had some brains and realized we are adapting some quality source material that many people really like. And so they decided to I know this is big brain, this is shocking. They decided to make it accurate to the source material and adapt it closer to it, all right, without changing much, because the characters are clearly already well written. It's an engaging story, and as a result, the film is good. Shocking, I know. Wouldn't it be great if Wheel of Time, big brain people on Wheel of Time, figured that out and adapted the characters accurately?
And not only that, the costume department did an amazing job. Like, this is a very girl perspective.
It really is.
But through the whole thing, I was like, oh, I want that outfit and that one and that one. And not all movies make you even consider that. And so I just think they just did a gorgeous job of adapting stage show outfits to a movie screen.
I mean, you're absolutely right. This is important for the target audience. Like, for me, it does nothing for, well, it depends. It depends on the setting, because in House of the Dragon,
if they were wearing armor, you would be impressed.
Armor and swords, I'm just as pedantic, and having good armor and swords and accurate or good medieval clothing in the right period lifts the immersive and even the enjoyability of a film for me. That's why House of the Dragons, the costumes in House of the Dragons were great. And you actually complimented the costumes in House of the Dragon as well, because there were some really nice dresses.
Yes, but these ones have more of them and lots of them.
Yes, lots of fancy clothes and dresses. It's a very girly film, but we understand that. I mean, it understands its target audience. As a result, this film has the potential to be huge. It's actually well made, all right? It's entertaining. I can even acknowledge that with me being not the target audience and finding some of it boring as a result. But for the audience that enjoys musical numbers, spectacle, and lots of girly kind of things to appreciate.
Or at least if you're wanting to take a girlfriend or spouse or whatever to the movies, you won't suffer too much through this one.
Well, some will.
Too much.
I saw Gary from Nerdrotic's quick take as he left the cinema, and he was able to acknowledge, look, it's well acted, well made, well produced. And then he said, but for him, it was the ninth circle of hell. It is not a traditional guy's film by any means.
No.
Right?
But you could pick a lot worse to watch for with a lady who enjoys these sorts of shows.
This is actually true, like Barbie or something like that. Right? So it's not the worst thing. Now, the fact that this is a part one, right? It's hard for me. Well, not hard. I literally can't critique some of the plot points because they're not resolved. And I was like cautious on a couple of things, but other things they did really well. I've already mentioned the development of the friendship and the act of kindness. That makes sense. But there were some like things here and there, and I guess it's minor spoilers where I'm not sure if you get, but we're not going to have
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We're not going to have an extensive spoiler section in this review, I don't think. But there is a moment where the wizard does something that I thought was pretty dumb. And I'm not sure I like their direction with the wizard, but my lovely wife, the lady, has let me know that this is accurate to the play. That is, remember, spoilers now, okay? The wizard is a villain. He's a full-on villain in this film, an evil character from what they have shown so far. I know he was a fraud from the classic Wizard of Oz, but I never picked him out as being a tyrant, okay? Part one depicts him, reveals him as a tyrant. And maybe there'll be something in part two which might give some justification for his actions. But there is a moment where Elphaba, is that her name?
Yes.
Got it. Says that they go to the wizard to get their heart's desire, remember? And she gives what her heart's desire is. The wizard hears that, he knows it, and then later on, he spits out that he has a plan that is literally the subversion of what Elphaba's heart's desire was. And he says that with the presumption that he doesn't think Elphaba's going to have an issue with it. Of course she does. She's like, holy crap, you're evil, right? And he just spat it out like she was going to be on board with it. I'm thinking, why would you do that? Because that was just a dumb moment in the film. And look, that's me latching on to, I think it's a significant one, but at least there's not heaps of it. It's not full. We're not in like, Rings of Power or Acolyte levels of constant stupid moments like that. But there are moments here and there. Is that in the stage show? Does the wizard do that?
Pretty much.
Pretty much?
So they're pretty much stuck with the stage show on that one. And, they try to have him have a bit of a dialogue and explaining why he's doing this and in his head how it makes sense. And he's trying to say, look, I make sense and this is what I do and why. You should agree with me.
Because he does kind of have that but when he goes on to say, the way that you unite people is to give them a good enemy or good
common enemy or something.
Common, that's just full blown evil. And so maybe I'll ask you after the review because I do kind of want to know if they double down on that or it's resolved or something like that. But that would be a spoiler then for part two, which we definitely won't be going into. But there are hanging questions like that. Another big hanging question for me, which is just the nature of this being a part one, is Elphaba's, fall to the dark side. It doesn't actually happen in this film. Everything that she does seems perfectly consistent and justified with her character, which, yes, that's good, right? But bear in mind, there's a resolution that we're supposed to be leading to. She's supposed to become a pretty full-on evil witch. And we do not see that in this film. And so as a result, I'm wondering, okay, there's a bit of, plot to pass or cover in the second film to reach this supposed conclusion where she becomes the full-on cackling, fly, my pretties, fly. You get to see how they get made in this film, which honestly actually wasn't an inconsistent use of the magic. Like, the way that she ends up getting more control of her magic isn't Mary Sue, I can just do it now. She literally, or she finds an object that enables her to channel and get specific results of her magic, which actually works fine. I was perfectly happy with that. And it explains how she gets her flying broom and things. And so that's one of the areas where films like this can go wrong when they're using magic, is just that, they can just end up doing anything that they want, or Mary Sue powers, whip it out as she wants. No, she
struggles through most of the movie to control any of her magic.
I mean, and same with Glinda, doesn't even have magic at this point. That's another question, by the way. It's like I said, there's a lot to resolve in part 2 that isn't resolved in part 1 that I would actually be of potential criticisms, because it's like, okay, is this consistent? But it's not finished. Therefore, I can't comment on it. That, I guess, will be for part 2. But look, that's really everything I have to say about Wicked at the moment. It was solid, surprisingly solid. Final thoughts, my dear?
I will see number 2, and I'll probably take the kids to see the first one. So
yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was a fun one to take the kids to. Our kids love ones that have fun music and fun colours, and they'll probably enjoy it.
That's a good thing to bring up, actually. This is a family-friendly film.
It is.
We actually had our youngest with us when we watched it, and he was surprisingly engaged.
He kept commenting about everything that was happening. He even tried singing along with a couple of the songs, even though he knew none of the words. He was a 3-year-old.
3-year-old, by the way. Boy.
And it goes for 3 hours, and he didn't get up once. He sat there, he ate his popcorn, and he just watched it.
Lots of music. Look, the little kids like the Wiggles for a reason, okay? And so bright colours, flashy things, talking animals, surprisingly was engaging for a 3-year-old. And I think, perfectly good family-friendly film, which we don't honestly get enough of. So perhaps Wicked deserves a little bit more credit even on that front for that. And so, look, I came into this ready to dislike it a lot. There was all the poor lead up, but when something is good, I'll happily acknowledge it. And I'm always happy to find a good family-friendly film these days. So I would give it maybe a 7 out of 10. That's
pretty high praise from you.
Yeah. What would you give it?
Well, I wouldn't say it's perfect, so but I'd be up at 9. I really enjoyed it, especially the costumes, of course, and the special effects. It was just a beautiful movie to watch, and they sung and acted beautifully. Yeah.
Again, I think the biggest surprise is Ariana Grande. That can be a difficult performance to pull off, and maybe she's just great acting, or and I don't know how she would do well in a more serious, dramatic role, because she's meant to play a ditzy kind of airhead. Do you think that comes naturally to her?
I wouldn't know, but she does it well in this movie.
She does. So there we go. That's our review for Wicked. It's a surprise. There we go. Check it out if you're interested. Guys probably won't be like, I wouldn't have really gone to see it unless because you wanted to see it. I would go with you, of course. But there we go. And as always, stay on watch.